Hello and welcome to City Corner. I'm your host, Todd Blackstock. On today's show, Erin Clark from the St. Louis Aquarium will join us in studio to discuss pirates and pumpkins invading Union Station. And author Steve Weigenstein will be here to tell us about his latest book based on the 1904 World's Fair. So stay with us for City Corner coming up next on STL TV. Our first guest today is the Director of Animal Projects for the St. Louis Aquarium, Erin Clark. Erin, thanks so much for joining us. And it looks like there's an autumn treat coming up in St. Louis Union Station.
There's a lot of really fun stuff happening down at Union Station. The aquarium is being invaded by pirates again this year. They'll be with us through October 31st. But they've brought along some magnificently carved pumpkins with them this year, featuring animals from within the aquarium.
So they're actually carved out. I was like thinking, it sounds like it's going to be a tour. Now, is this going to be a walking tour or a guided tour? How does it work?
It's all self-guided. So it starts at the very beginning of your journey in the aquarium, and you will experience scenes throughout, intricately carved pumpkins. You can meet some of our spooky animal ambassadors. And so take your time going all the way through the aquarium with a few things to do when you get home as well.
I think there's a pretty cool pumpkin shark scene in there I want you to tell me about.
There is, yeah. So we feature a 7-foot-ish pumpkin shark, the one of its kind, and you can get your photo taken with it in a boat right next to it.
So will people be able to bring their cameras in and post on social media? It's kind of a free-for-all? You just come on in and just have fun.
Absolutely, yeah. So especially if you're into taking photos with seasonal decor, this is a great spot to come on in and do that. Lots of opportunities with pumpkins and our different animals and some pirate characters as well.
So I understand this can be a real learning experience for the kids as well.
Yeah, there are amazing animals out there. A lot of what we'll focus on are those animals that are kind of have a bad rap as scary, sharks, piranhas, snakes. So they get an opportunity, our guests will get an opportunity to learn more about them and even meet them up close at our Animal Ambassador stage. And
some of the kids, they can even engage with some of the props.
For sure, there's lots of photo opportunities there, lots of interactives. We have a pirate ship, and you can set off the cannons. Which is a real treat.
So tell us a little bit more about that. How do you come in and set off the cannons?
So you'll just walk up and there's a push button. And you just push the button. Yeah, it's really, our team gets a huge kick out of it as well. Everybody loves it.
So when you're doing the dry rehearsals and run-throughs right now, what are some of the things that, at this point that you're focusing on?
So it's just getting, we're just making sure that everything is safe for our guests, but also...
You don't want any cannons blowing up anybody's, anybody's head off or anything.
No, right? just letting out the smoke, making sure we have the right amount of smoke that comes out of those cannons.
Now, I understand that with admission, kids may be receiving a little treat bag and some little items with them.
Yeah, so come October, it turns into a bit of a fall festival, and on weekends, Friday and Saturday evenings, kids can come trick-or-treating at the aquarium, and there'll be treat stations. They get a complimentary bag, and there'll be multiple stations throughout the aquarium.
So what about Tommy, the animated otter?
Yes, so you cannot celebrate pirates without having your own pirate name and learning to speak like pirates. So Tommy will teach you all about that, how to do that.
So is he going to come in and teach everybody how to go, "Arr"?
Yeah, exactly. And some of the more popular pirate terms so that you can properly speak like a pirate while you're through there.
So being able to interact with the animals, now how's that going to work?
So the aquarium has always been an interactive experience, so there's lots of opportunities to get your hands wet, touching doctorfish, sharks, stingrays, even jellyfish. And so we have team members there that will help guide you through it, but we want you to get in there and get your hands wet, and it gives you an opportunity to learn more about them.
So it is an interactive experience for the kids and the families coming through. And Will there be any like spooky storytelling or
There
anything like
will,
that?
of course. So Pirates will be doing story time over the weekend. And so every 30 minutes in our kids zone, you can stop in, have a break. It's about halfway through the experience. So parents and kids alike can sit down and listen to some pirate stories.
Now, I understand that there's going to be actual scuba divers inside the aquarium. I'm trying to get a visual on this right now because, it's such a cool segue between the autumn and then the Halloween shift when it comes to October. But could you maybe go into a little bit of that a little more deeply?
Absolutely. So our divers will be leading a dive presentation on Saturdays and Sundays. And during October, in addition to sharing some fun facts about all of the animals that live in Shark Canyon, they will be participating in an underwater pumpkin carving competition. So there are 2 divers in there carving pumpkins, and our guests will, at the end of the presentation, vote on whose pumpkin was the best design for that dive.
Wow. And so as far as the scuba divers, so you're walking in there and the scuba divers they're actually in there in the water with sharks carving pumpkins. Now, are they afraid of the sharks? Have they gotten to know each other pretty well over the years? Or
They have, yeah, and we keep an eye out for them. Divers make a lot of noise when they're in the water. There's lots of bubbles, so the sharks tend to stay away from them. But we keep a close eye out for them and just make sure that we're not getting in their way. Sharks can see on the sides of them. They can't see directly in front of you. So we just if they get too close, we just casually guide them off to the side. But for the most part, with 250,000 gallons of water, there's a lot of space for everybody in there.
So when does this exhibit start?
So Pumpkins and Pirates will start September 15th and run through October 31st.
Okay, and then something happens. You said it segues from September 15th to October 1st, and at October 1st, something else happens and it kind of turns into more of a Halloween theme?
Yeah, so the October 1st is when our trick-or-treating will start and our underwater pumpkin carving competitions will start. So if you want to get a head start on the holiday season and get your photos in, come do that during September, learn a little bit more about our spooky animals, and then come on back in October and do some trick-or-treating with us.
When you come down to Union Station, you can make a whole weekend out of it. I mean, if you're coming down for the Pirates and Pumpkins, that's going to be a lot of fun. But, you can make a whole weekend about it. Maybe discuss some of the other events and things you can do around town and Union Station if you're coming up for the weekend.
Absolutely. Union Station is home to 7 attractions, including the aquarium. And there are ticket packages that you can purchase, multiple admissions, and have a cost savings there. And so you can come on down and ride our 200-foot observation wheel. You can take some additional photos in our new Selfie Express, which is an interactive train experience. You walk in and there's all different scenes for you to take photos in. You can ride our carousel, go through our mirror maze, play around a mini golf, ride on the ropes course. So lots of opportunities for you to stay busy.
Yeah, what about the mini golf? Now, is there more than one course?
So it is one 18-hole course that's outside by our observation wheel. So it takes a little bit of time to get through. Different obstacles for you to get through while you're doing it.
Now, what kind of packages do you offer with Union Station and maybe the hotel or the restaurants nearby?
Yeah, so there's a combination package. If you stay at Union Station Hotel, you get complimentary admission to the aquarium. There's a package to buy all of the attractions or some of the attractions, depending on what your needs are. So head on over to our website. You can learn about those on unionstationstl.com.
Very good. So if you get an admission to the aquarium at Union Station, then you're automatically in the Pirates and Pumpkins.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, that sounds great. So it's kind of all inclusive. Now, what about the 1904 World's Fair Mirror Maze?
Yeah.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
It was such an exciting time for St. Louis. 1904, because of Union Station, we were able to host the 1904 World's Fair and a number of other things. So we wanted to honor that period of time and all the fun inventions that came out of that. So the Mirror Maze is a bit of a hall of mirrors plus a fun house. You can learn about some really great inventions and the Olympic sports that were played during the 1904 World's Game, while also then going through a bit of a fun house.
So Union Station at one time was one of the biggest railroad stations in the world.
It was.
And I guess back in the 1800s. It seems like Chicago kind of took a little bit of our thunder back in the day. But Union Station, when I was a kid, we would go down there and it was just a replica of its old self. So, I think the O'Laughlin Group has done a fantastic job renovating all that. And, what's next to come down there?
Yeah, there's lots of development happening. The Pitch recently opened down at Union Station, which is a new restaurant. So if you're heading down for the soccer game or just want to watch the soccer game, head on over to the Pitch. But there's always fun and exciting things to come at Union Station, so keep an eye out for those.
So how excited are you about Union Station with the new soccer stadium right there? Busch Stadium is right down the corner, and then you've got Enterprise Center as well. Because for many years, let's face it, I remember going to the Missouri Valley basketball tournaments, and people would go through Union Station, and it was almost a little bit disappointing because you might have one restaurant and a couple of T-shirt shops and things and a hotel, but all just vacant, boarded up buildings. And can you discuss how far it's come along?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if that's what you remember, then it's night and day. So Union Station, again, 7 attractions. It now has 4 restaurants and centrally located. So if you're coming down for any of the games, along with a really large parking lot, it's a great opportunity for you to come spend some time before the games, check out the aquarium, grab a bite to eat, and then you're within walking distance of any one of the major sporting areas.
With the soccer team there now, they have games all the time. I mean, it's not like the NFL where there's like 8 home games and a couple of preseason games. They seem to be playing, and they play a long season too. So maybe discuss the buzz, because people are, they may have a hotel down the street and they cruise right through Union Station on their way over to the soccer stadium. What's it like down there?
They do, and the energy is really exciting. It's been really nice to see. St. Louis is going to get behind its sports teams. They're a very supportive community. So it's been fantastic to see all of these new faces come on down, and maybe those that haven't been to Union Station in a little bit, and see all that there is to offer. We also host pep rallies before the home games, so that if you're coming down and you're coming to a game, you're walking through and there's live music and there's just an energy that hasn't been there in many years.
Wow. Well, any final thoughts, or could you tell our viewers how to get a hold of tickets one more time, and any upcoming events you'd like to talk about as well?
Absolutely. So if you're coming on down to Union Station, we definitely recommend, if you want to come, buy your ticket online ahead of time at stlaquarium.com. And you can purchase your tickets there. Again, Pumpkins and Pirates will be running through October 31st, so lots of opportunities to come down and celebrate the season.
Well, I can't wait to get down there, Erin. Thank you so much for joining us here on City Corner, and I look forward to seeing the exhibit and maybe bringing the grandkids down there. I'm sure they'll have a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
All righty. Well, let's take a quick break now, and when we return, author Steve Weigenstein will join us after the break discussing the 1904 World's Fair series of books he has. So stay with us.
A lethal dose is in here. Who gets it, I won't know. scary that it can be put into anything when you can't even see it or notice it.
What I love about St. Louis is the 79 unique neighborhoods nestled into 108 city parks, including Forest Park, which is actually larger than Central Park in New York, and of course, the beautiful Tower Grove Park where I'm at now. Oh, the St. Louis Blues. We've got the St. Louis Surge, two-time WBCBL champions. We've got Harris Stowe, WashU, St. Louis University, and of course, the 11-time World Series champion, St. Louis Cardinals. So come experience St. Louis. And welcome back to City Corner. I'm your host, Todd Blackstock. Our second guest today is an author who is set to release his 5th book. It's the latest in the series revolving around the 1904 St. Louis World's Fair. Steve Weigenstein, welcome to City Corner.
Thank you
for
so
correcting me on that just a minute ago. But Steve, first of all, thank you so much for driving in from Columbia, Missouri. It's a beautiful day today, and we're very excited to have you here. And we're excited to discuss your new novel. I know it sounds like it's your 5th book, but it's actually your 4th on the topic of the 1904 World's Fair. Can you set the stage for us?
Sure. It's the 4th novel of a series of historical novels. And the first one begins before the Civil War, set in a small Ozarks village, a fictional village that I call Daybreak. And the novel series progresses from that point on to the years after the war, then the late 1880s, and then this most recent one is set in 1903, 1904. And so my villagers down in the Ozarks have aged as time passes and the community has changed. And so with this book, of course, the World's Fair is going on in St. Louis. So circumstances lead them to set up an exhibition on the Pike that's supposed to show them off as authentic hillbillies. And that's the premise for the novel, is that they come to town.
So you're actually from the Ozark area. So you grew up in that area, loving the great outdoors and things. So that must have been a great inspiration for you to title it this.
It was, and they always say, write what you know. And I grew up in Fredericktown, and then later outside of Annapolis, both small towns in the Ozarks. But I had aunts and uncles in St. Louis, and so the coming and going to St. Louis was sort of part of my childhood as well. And there was always that sense of a thrill of going up to the city to take in things. So it was pretty easy for me to kind of channel the emotions of these characters.
Now, you pretty much spent most of your career in education. I understand you were a professor and a teacher at some very distinguished universities and colleges around the country. Could you share a little bit of that with us before we dive back into your books?
Sure. Well, I went to journalism school back in the day and worked for a little while as a newspaper reporter. But that wasn't really for me, so I got into higher education. Got my advanced degrees at the University of Missouri. And then spent a lot of my career at Culver-Stockton College in Canton. Took an administrative job after that, but then finished up at Central Methodist, from which I retired. So I've been retired for a few years now and writing full-time.
So I understand throughout your writings you became a Penn Faulkner finalist. I understand that's a pretty prestigious situation there. It's a great award, and being a finalist in that is, it's quite a feat. Can you discuss that, the Penn Faulkner Award?
It was a shock. It was a delight when my short story collection, Scattered Lights, which explains why this is my 5th book, but only my 4th novel. The story collection was named as one of 5 finalists in 2021 for the Penn Faulkner Award in Fiction. Small press, Midwestern locale, Ozark setting, but was recognized nationwide, and I was both flabbergasted and really honored to reach that achievement. It was great.
The 1904 World's Fair was a celebration in conjunction with the Louisiana Purchase exhibition, which made St. Louis the gateway to the West. So what a great backdrop to start your novels.
You know, I've always been interested in history and tried to set each book at some sort of critical moment in history, such as the Civil War or the rebuilding of the country after the war, and things like that. So when it came time to work on this novel, setting it around the turn of the century, it's like, well, the St. Louis World's Fair is kind of inescapable. It's probably one of the biggest events of St. Louis history and of Missouri history as well. So it seemed such a natural focus to put the book in that time period and in that setting. So it was a fantastic match for me.
You know, it's pretty amazing that St. Louis had not only the 1904 World's Fair, but the 1904 Olympics as well. So St. Louis at that point in time was very grand. I mean, it was one of the stopping points and destination areas for the world.
It was, and that was, you know, that was the explicit aspiration of the fair's directors and creators, was to sort of publicize St. Louis, to reclaim a little bit of that lost luster that you talked about in the previous segment with Chicago, because Chicago had beat them out for the Columbian Exposition 10 years before. And so the St. Louis Fair directors were just determined that this was going to be the biggest, the grandest, the most extravagant, and also, in their view, educational fair, in that they didn't want it to be tawdry like the Chicago Midway. They wanted to have it be uplifting and wholesome for families. So they poured everything they could into its creation and publicity.
You know, I tell you, the Louisiana Fair Purchase Exposition, it revealed a lot about the good, the bad, and the in-between about a lot of people in the Midwest and around the country, didn't it?
It did. And, you know, that's something I think we have to grapple with, was that most people, I think, when they think about the St. Louis World's Fair, they think about Meet Me in St. Louis with Judy Garland, which is a wonderful movie, bathed in nostalgia, classic Hollywood nostalgia movie that doesn't say anything about the darker side of the fair. And, you know, as contemporary St. Louis interest people, we got to come to grips with that too, in that in some respects the fair was a revelation of the darker side of the American experience as well, and that a lot of it was given over to the exhibition of captive people. The Philippine exhibition took up almost a third of the fair's acreage, and of course there were lots of other so-called savages put on display for people to walk around and, frankly, to kind of congratulate themselves that they were better than that person there, or they were superior or more evolved or whatever. So the book does address that. It trying to takes that into account as well.
You know, a lot of people at the time, in their moment in time, they don't think that there's anything wrong. That's just the time that they lived in. And it really shows the importance of teaching history of our country and our world. And, you know, to show how we've evolved as a species, it's amazing when you look over just the last 200 years, you know, people take a look back at themselves and it's like, wow, you know, this was a pretty savage country at some time, and, you know, how it was built and some of things like that. So how do you, as a former professor, discuss how important it is to look at your history? You don't want to cover it up. You want to learn from it, don't you?
Absolutely, warts and all. And that's a tough thing. And of course, for me, the fair is a setting for a story. So I don't want the setting to outweigh the story. So we've got characters who are engaged in all kinds of troubles and triumphs and betrayals and falling in love and all that. But at the same time, they're reflecting the place where they're located. So, you know, you have to really come to grips with what did people believe, what were they capable of doing, what were they willing to do at the time, and where was the fair located in American history at large as well.
I tell you what, the Louisiana Purchase, it revealed a lot about, the people, but, it is important that we discuss the history of it, because when you look at the history, then you don't want to repeat it.
Well, let us hope that we don't put captive races on display anymore. Let's hope that we've gone beyond that. But I do think that some of the vestiges of the World's Fair experience are still present here in St. Louis and around the country too, for that matter. We see the few kind of architectural features that are remaining, but also a lot of the dividing lines and the points of tension are still present in our society. For me, that's kind of the job of a historical novelist, is to reflect toward the present and try to get people to think, well, how does this experience reflect on my own experience of the present day?
So the book is fictional, but it does parallel with a lot of historic events.
It is definitely fiction. And I want to emphasize for people, don't read the book and think it's a history of the fair. There are a lot of really great histories of the fair out there, but this is not one of them. This is a fictional story with fictional characters, some of whom are modeled on real people, but there's not a precise mapping.
Now, what else would you like to tell us about your book's Land of Joys?
Well, it releases on the 26th of September. So it's available for pre-order now if you want to get a jump on things. But on the 27th, which is the Wednesday after its official release, I'll be down at Subterranean Books in the Del Mar Loop to do a launch event, have a party, and sign as many books as anybody wants to buy and get signed. So I'm really looking forward to that event for sure.
Well, we appreciate you coming in, and being from Fredericktown and Annapolis and the Ozarks, you must be a pretty avid outdoorsman, I would think.
I am indeed. My wife and I go kayaking as many times as we can, and we hike pretty regularly too.
Well, that's great. Get out and about and enjoy the beautiful state we have. I mean, people call us a flyover state here, but I tell you what, people that live here and enjoy our waters and streams and rivers and lakes, they really love it here, and it's part of God's country.
It is indeed, and I'm proud to be a Missourian, and wherever I go, I'm always happy to tell people that that's where I'm from.
So folks, get out to Subterranean Books. It's going to be out there, and Tuesday, September 26th is the release date, and the 27th you'll be in the Del Mar Loop.
That's right.
All right. We appreciate you coming in and making the drive all the way from Columbia, Missouri to join us here on City Corner. Thank you so much, Steve.
Thank you.
That's our show for today. We'd especially like to thank Steve and Erin Clark for joining us here on City Corner. We'd like to thank you for watching City Corner on STL TV. Experience St. Louis.